Hey, Shalom Israel, Most High in Christ bless. About to get ready to get started in just a second. We're going to knock out the 4 chapters. IUIC 365, 4 chapters. Hey, Officer Zacharias, I appreciate you, bro. All praise to the Most High. All praises. Watching from India. Most High in Christ bless you. All praise to the Most High. Truth is going throughout the 4 corners. All praise to the Most High. All right, Israel. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Officer Zacharias, thank you for volunteering. I appreciate you, bro. All right. Oh, yeah, and then at the end, I am going to take questions at the end, all right? I will take questions at the end. All right. The book of Genesis, chapter 40 and verse 1. And it came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was wroth against 2 of his officers, against the chief of the butlers, and against the chief of the bakers. And he put them in ward in the house of the captain of the guard, into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them. And they continue a season in ward. And they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man his dream in one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. And Joseph came in unto them in the morning, and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the ward of his lord's house, saying, Wherefore look ye so sadly today? And they said unto him, We have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray you. So Joseph is on another level. He said, Do not interpretations belong to God? He said, Tell me them, I pray you. So yes, interpretations do belong to God. Let's get Daniel real quick. Let's get Daniel. I'm not going to precept too much, maybe just here and there. Just here and there. But let's get Daniel. He said, Do not interpretations belong to God? Daniel chapter 2, and let's read verse 47. The book of Daniel, chapter 2, and verse 47. It says, The king answered unto Daniel and said, Of a truth it is, that your God is a God of gods, and a Lord of kings, and a revealer of secrets, seeing thou couldst reveal this secret. So, Joseph already understood that thing. Joseph said, I'm back in verse 8, and Joseph said unto them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray you. Verse 9. And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph, and said to him, In my dream, behold, a vine was before me, and in the vine there were 3 branches, and it was as though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said unto him, This is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head, and restore thee unto thy place, and thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand, after the former manner when thou wast his butler. But think on me when it shall be well with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing, that they should put me into the dungeon. When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said unto Joseph, I also was in my dream, and behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head, and in the uppermost basket there was of all manner of baked meats for Pharaoh, and the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. And Joseph answered and said, This is the interpretation thereof. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off thee, and shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat thy flesh from off thee. So what you notice is both of them, they saw variations of 3s in their dreams, and then it went into the other things, contents of the dream. And but both of them, the 3 was representing 3 days. Going to show you a precept for that. Let's get Sirach 34. The dream is not always what it seems. So let's get Sirach 34 real quick in verse 3. The book of Sirach, chapter 34, I'm in 44. The book of Sirach, chapter 34, in verse 3. It says, the vision of dreams is the resemblance of one thing to another. How both of them saw different variations of 3, and then that 3 represented 3 days. It didn't necessarily mean the 3 things they saw in the dream. So I'll read again. Sirach 34 and verse 3. The vision of dreams is the resemblance of one thing to another, even as the likeness of a face to a face. What it means when it says a face to a face, you may see in your dream your face. Let's say it's you and you stealing a piece of bread. But it may be somebody's going to steal some of your possessions in the future. So you seeing yourself steal a piece of bread, maybe somebody's going to steal something from you in the upcoming days, or steal from somebody else in the upcoming days. It's the resemblance of one thing to another. All right? That's just an example. So I'm going to go back. Genesis chapter 40 and verse 20 now. And it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his servants. And he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants. And he restored the chief butler unto his butlership again. And he gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker as Joseph had interpreted to them. So what you see is, please don't ask me questions now. At the end, I'm a hold questions for a couple of minutes. All right, so be patient. But what you see is that on the day of the dream, it happened just as Joseph laid it out for them. All right, and one thing you want to also make notice of as well is that birthdays are a heathen custom where many wicked things take place. For example, he summoned all these people just so he could hang somebody in front of all of them. That's completely wicked as hell. And it's always an evil occurrence dealing with birthdays. So this man got put to death in front of everybody. Another example of wickedness happening on birthdays, let's get Matthew 14. Let's get Matthew 14. And let's go to verse Matthew 14 with Herod. Matthew 14, verse 6. So it says, but when Herod's birthday was kept, the daughter of Herodias danced before them and pleased Herod. So Herod was aroused. Verse 7. Whereupon he promised with an oath to give her whatsoever she would ask. And she, being before instructed of her mother, said, give me here John Baptist's head in a charger. So what? She wanted his head on a charger. So what happened to John? He was beheaded. All right, on due to Herod's oath that he made on his wicked birthday. All right. So let's go back. That's just another example. So let's go back, and now we're in verse 22. It says, but he hanged the chief baker as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgot him. Chapter 41. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. So now Pharaoh is dreaming. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine, and fat flesh, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kind came up after them out of the river. So now we're seeing different variations of the number 7. So remember, we read in Sirach 34 earlier that the dreams, they be a resemblance of one thing to another. All right. So it says, verse 4, and the ill-favored and lean flesh kind did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kind. So Pharaoh awoke, and he slept and dreamed the second time. And behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good, meaning, fat and healthy. So it says, and behold, 7 thin ears and blasted with the east wind sprang up after them, meaning weak and withered. And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears, and Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt, and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, and put me in ward, and the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. And we dreamed a dream in one night, I and he. We dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was there with us a young man, an Hebrew, servant to the captain of the guard. And we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams. To each man according to his dream he did interpret. And it came to pass, as he interpreted to us, so it was. Me he restored unto mine office, and him he hanged. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. And he shaved himself, and changed his raiment, and came in unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard say of thee, that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, it is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. So what? He understood that what? He understood that it's the Most High God that's revealing these things. He understood it's not him, but it's the Most High who reveals these things. Let's get a precept. Let's get Amos. Let's get Amos chapter 3. So Joseph did what? Joseph gave all praise to the Most High. So let's get Amos 3. Amos chapter 3, and we're going to read verse 7. Amos chapter 3 and verse 7. Surely the Lord God will do nothing, but he revealeth his secret unto his servants, the prophets. Let's get one more. Let's get Psalms 25. Let's get Psalms 25. The book of Psalms, chapter 25, and we're going to read verse 14. It says, the secret of the Lord is with them that fear him, and he will show them his covenant. So Joseph, y'all praise the Most High, understanding that it's the Lord who reveals those things unto his servants, unto us. So let's go back to we were in verse 16. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, it is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, in my dream, behold, I stood upon the bank of the river, and behold, there came up out of the river 7 kinds, fat flesh and well favored, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kind came up after them, poor and very ill favored and lean flesh, such as I never saw in all the land of Egypt for badness. And the lean and the ill favored kind did eat up the first 7 fat kinds. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, but they were still ill favored, as at the beginning. So I awoke, and I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears came up, and one stalk, full and good. And behold, 7 ears withered, thin, and blasted with the east wind sprung up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears. And I told this unto the magicians, but there was none that could declare it unto me. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. Meaning they both the same. They both have the same meaning. They mean the same thing. The dream of Pharaoh is one. God hath showed Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good kind are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. the dream is one. And the 7 thin and ill-favored kind that came up after them are 7 years. And the 7 empty ears, blasted with the east wind, shall be 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he showeth unto Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt, and there shall arise after them 7 years of famine. And all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land, and the plenty shall not be known in the land, by reason of that famine following, for it shall be very grievous. And for that dream, and for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will surely bring it to pass. Now therefore, let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years, and let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. And that food shall be for store to the land, against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants. So Joseph just dropped something very heavy on him. So he's saying, you know what, take that 7 years of plenteous, and guess what, keep it, store it up, so we can and ration it throughout the years of famine. So what is that, Jacob? What is that showing you about Joseph? He was what? He was wise and understanding. He was diligent. All right. So let's get a precept for that. Let's get Proverbs 22. Let's get Proverbs 22. About that spirit that was on Joseph. Proverbs 22, and we're gonna read verse 3. It says, "A prudent man," meaning what? A man who is wise and has the spirit of knowledge and wisdom on him. It says, "A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself," meaning what? He sees bad days coming. He sees evil coming. He does what? He makes preparations to be what? To be not consumed in that evil. So it says again, "A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished." So the simple man will say, "Oh well, we had 7 good years. We'll be found when 7 years of famine come." And guess what? He be the reason why all his people were destroyed. So again, it says, "A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished." And let me look at one more. Let's go to, what is that? Proverbs 21. Proverbs 21, verse 20. It says, "There is treasure to be desired, and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man spendeth it up." Meaning what? He don't save a thing. That's a spirit of folly on you, spirit of foolishness, where you just spend things irrationally. You got a frivolous spirit. All right. So let's go back. And we were in, what were we at? Let me see where we were at. We were in verse 24, I believe. All right. No, we were past that. We were 37. So it says, "And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, Can we find such a one as this is? A man in whom the Spirit of God is." Let me go to show you. Our people are far from dumb. We are brilliant people. Always have been. From the time of Joseph to the time of Daniel under ancient Babylon up until this day. Give me the precept for that. That thing just... We have always been a wise and understanding people. Let's get Daniel 1. Even to this day, we're responsible for many different inventions and cunning arts. So Daniel 1 and verse 4. I'm going to start at verse 3. "And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs," because they castrated us. It says that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, and of the king's seed, and of the princes, children in whom was no blemish, but well favored, and skillful in all wisdom, and cunning in knowledge, and understanding science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace. If you're in the king's palace, what do you think you're doing? You're giving advice, you're giving counsel, you're giving wisdom, you're giving your thoughts and opinions on different matters that pertain to the ruling of the kingdom. So such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. What we have the capability to what? Understand multiple languages as well. So let's go back again. And verse 38. Genesis 41 and 38. It says, and Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this is, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, forasmuch as God hath showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. So he says, you're going to run the whole kingdom. The only person who's above you is me. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand, and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had. And they cried before him, bow the knee. And he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. Meaning, don't nothing move without Joseph giving the decree. Don't nothing move unless Joseph say so. So let's get a precept for that. Let's get Psalms 105. Let's get Psalms 105. Quick precept about Joseph's position when he was in Egypt. Let's get Psalms 105, and we're going to start at verse 16. The book of Psalms, chapter 105 and verse 16. Moreover, he called for a famine upon the land. He brake the whole staff of bread. So it's referring to the same history that we just read in Genesis. He sent a man before them, even Joseph, who was sold for a servant, sold by his own brothers, whose feet they hurt with fetters. He was laid in iron, because remember, he was in war in the dungeon. Until the time that his word came, the word of the Lord tried him. The king sent and loosed him, even the ruler of the people, and let him go free. He made him lord of his house and ruler of all his substance, to bind his princes at his pleasure. So Joseph had the power to lock up any Egyptian, stop and frisk any Egyptian he wanted to. Just to bind his princes, whether you were a prince or a commoner, he could bind you and have you thrown in jail. That's how powerful Joseph was. It says to bind his princes at his pleasure and teach his senators wisdom. So Joseph taught the senators of Egypt wisdom. Israel also, so that's all I want on that. So let's go back. All right, so we were at verse 45, in Genesis 41 and verse 45 now. So it says, and Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Paneah. So you know these heathens always like to change our names. So it says, and Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Paneah. That's why America is called spiritual Egypt, right? Why? Because they do the same thing that ancient Egypt did. It says, and he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And in the 7 plenteous years, the earth brought forth by handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years, which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities. The food of the field, which was round about every city, lay he up in the same. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, with Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God said, he hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. So Manasseh, the name Manasseh means made to forget. And the name of the second called he Ephraim, for God hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. So the word Ephraim means what? It means fruitful. So notice that Ephraim is the second born, but we know that Ephraim, he possessed what? The kingship. The first king of the northern kingdom was who? It was Jeroboam, who was what? From the tribe of Ephraim. He wasn't from Manasseh. Why? Because Ephraim is the head tribe. How did that happen with Ephraim being the second born? Should Manasseh have been the firstborn? Manasseh should have been the firstborn, but our father Jacob changed that. So let's get a precept for that. Let's get Genesis 48, and let's show y'all that real quick. Why Manasseh is the firstborn, but don't possess the kingship or being the head of the northern kingdom. Let's get Genesis 48, and let's get verse 17. So Genesis 48 and verse 17. And when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand upon the head of Ephraim, it displeased him. So remember, when Jacob was blessing, Jacob put his right hand upon Ephraim, who was the second born, showing you who Jacob wanted to be the ruler of the northern kingdom, who he wanted to be the head tribe. So it says, and when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand upon the head of Ephraim, it displeased him. And he held up his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head unto Manasseh's head. And Joseph said unto his father, not so, my father, for this is the firstborn. Put thy right hand upon his head. And his father refused and said, I know it, my son, I know it. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. But truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. And he blessed them that day, saying, in thee shall Israel bless, saying, God shall make thee as Ephraim and as Manasseh. And he said Ephraim before Manasseh. All right, so that's why it's like that. So let's go back now. And we were in verse 53. It says, and the 7 years of plenteous that was in the land of Egypt were ended, and the 7 years of dearth began to come according as Joseph had said. And the dearth was in all the lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. So another word for dearth is famine. All right, I'll give you a precept for that. Let's get Acts 7. Dearth just means famine. And as we read on, it'll explain it, but you know Israel likes precepts. So let me get Acts 7 and verse 11. The book of Acts chapter 7 and verse 11. Now there came a dearth over all the land of Egypt and Canaan, and great affliction, and our fathers found no sustenance, meaning what? No food, nothing to nourish their bodies with. All right. So dearth just means famine, meaning what? No sustenance. All right. So let's go back. All right. So it says, and the verse 54, and the 7 years of dearth began to come, according as Joseph had said, and the dearth was in all the lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. Why? Because Joseph had he had stored up the 7 years of plenteous, right? And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, go unto Joseph. What he said to you, do. And the famine was all over the face of the earth. And Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians. And the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all countries came into Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, because that the famine was sore in all lands. Now when Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, said unto his sons, why do you look one upon another? You know it's a black man. Why y'all sitting around here looking stupid, staring at each other? Why y'all standing around here looking dumb? You know how our fathers be. Now when Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, Jacob said unto his sons, why do you look one upon another? And he said, behold, I have heard that there is corn in Egypt. Get you down thither, and buy for us from thence, that we may live and not die. And Joseph's 10 brethren went down to buy corn in Egypt. So as y'all can see, that was famine where they dwelt. Similar to how that was famine in Canaan when Abraham was up. Let me get that real quick. Let's jump back, because you see, there's always a famine, and the Lord God would have the spirit of our forefathers move to Egypt for sustenance and nourishment. So I'm going to show you that, how it's a repeating thing in our history, starting with Abraham. So let's get Genesis 12. Genesis 12, and I'm starting at verse 9. And Abram journeyed, going on still toward the south, and there was a famine in the land. And Abram went down into Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land. So the same way Abraham went down there, Isaac also went down there. Let's get there real quick. Let's get Genesis 26, I believe it's verse 1 or verse 2. Isaac also went down to Egypt when there was famine as well in his lifetime. Genesis 26 and verse 1. And there was a famine in the land, besides the first famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went unto Abimelech, king of the Philistines, unto Gerar. And the Lord appeared to him and said, go not down into Egypt, dwell in the land which I shall tell thee of. So let's go back. So now let's go back to Genesis 42 in verse 3. And Joseph's 10 brethren went down to buy corn in Egypt. But Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob, sent not with his brethren, for he said, lest peradventure mischief befall him. So you see that? It says, but Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob sent not with his brethren. So our forefather Jacob did not send his youngest son Benjamin with the other brethren. It says, lest peradventure, meaning perhaps mischief befall him. So when you examine the history about Benjamin in particular, Benjamin is the youngest boy, so you know how we overprotective of our young children. Not to mention that was Rachel's son. That let's just get it. Let's go to Genesis and let's go to what is that? Let's go to Genesis. Let's flip back for a second. Let's go to Genesis on around 30. Genesis 35, and we're gonna start at verse 16. The book of Genesis, chapter 35, and verse 16. And they journeyed from Bethel, and there was but a little way to come to Ephrath. And Rachel travailed, and she had hard labor. She was in dangerous labor. It says, and it came to pass, verse 17, and it came to pass, when she was in hard labor, that the midwife said unto her, fear not, thou shalt have this son also. And it came to pass, as her soul was in departing, for she died, that she called his name Benani, but his father called him Benjamin. And Rachel died and was buried in the way to Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. So Benjamin is the youngest son who died while Rachel was in hard labor. And we remember how our forefather Jacob felt about Rachel. Let's prove that. Let's get Genesis 29. Remember, Rachel was his favorite. So not only is this his youngest boy who he had from Rachel, this is also from the wife that was his favorite. So he didn't want him to go down there just in case something happened to him. So let's get Genesis 29, and we're going to read verse 30. So it says, and he went in also unto Rachel. So this is my Jacob land with Rachel and her becoming his wife. It says, and he went in also unto Rachel, and he loved also Rachel more than Leah, and served with him yet 7 other years. You see that? It says, and when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. So remember, Rachel really couldn't have children like that. So the children that Rachel brought forth were who? She brought forth Joseph, and she brought forth who? Benjamin. She brought forth Joseph, and she brought forth Benjamin. Remember, Manasseh and Ephraim, they come from Joseph when he was in Egypt, the 7 years of plenteous. So those children did not come from Jacob's loins, but they took place as if they came from Jacob's loins. Jacob claimed them as his own. All right? So that's why Jacob did not want Benjamin going down with the other brothers, because Benjamin was special. So now, let's read on. We were in verse 5. Chapter 42, verse 5. And the sons of Israel came to buy corn among those that came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. And Joseph was the governor over the land, and he it was that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth. And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, I mean he recognized them, but made himself strange unto them, and spake roughly unto them. And he said unto them, whence come ye? And they said, from the land of Canaan to buy food. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew him not. Meaning what? They did not know that was a brother. Why? Because we are black as night, just like the ancient Egyptians. Not the Ottoman Turks that you see in the land today. We are black as night, just like Egyptians. For example, I'm going to get a precept where all 12 tribes were mistaken for Egyptians. Not just Northern Kingdom, but just showing you Northern Kingdom used to be black as night, just like Southern Kingdom. I'll give you a precept for that real quick. Genesis 50. Genesis 50 and verse 10. This is when our father Jacob died. And this is his funeral, so to speak. Genesis 50 and verse 10. It says, and they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond Jordan. And there they mourned with a great and very sore lamentation. So they crying their eyes out for our father Jacob. And he made a mourning for his father 7 days. And when the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning in the floor of Atad, they said, this is a grievous mourning to the Egyptians. So all 12 tribes were black as night like the Egyptians. They all were mistaken by the Canaanites for Egyptians. All right? So I'm going to show you when he dealt with his brothers. Remember, time has passed. So he's gotten older. They've gotten older. He recognized them, but they not expecting. They thinking that he's dead. He's been sold. They don't know what that happened to him. They thinking probably some evil done befell him. So they not understanding that this their brother will be set up as second in command and a ruler over Egypt. All right. So we're gonna go back. Genesis 42 and verse 8. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew not him. And Joseph remembered the dreams which he dreamed of them, and said unto them, Ye are spies. So remember the dream that he had was that all his brothers would bow down to him. So now what is happening? Now they got to bow down to him. And they said unto him, verse 9, and Joseph remembered the dream which he had dreamed of them, and said unto them, Ye are spies, to see the nakedness of the land you are come. And they said unto him, Nay, my lord, but to buy food are thy servants come. We are all one man's sons. We are true men. Thy servants are no spies. And he said unto them, Nay, but to see the nakedness of the land you are come. And they said, Thy servants are 12 brethren, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is not. Meaning they thinking that he's dead. When he said one is not. And Joseph said unto them, That is it that I spake unto you, saying, Ye are spies. Hereby ye shall be proved. By the life of Pharaoh ye shall not go forth hence, except your youngest brother come hither. So what? That's his baby brother. He want to see his baby brother of his mother, Rachel. All right? He want to see his baby brother. He says, y'all ain't going nowhere until y'all youngest brother come hither. Verse 16. Send one of you, and let him fetch your brother, and ye shall be kept in prison, that your words may be proved, whether they be any truth in you, or else by the life of Pharaoh, surely ye are spies. And he put them all together into ward 3 days. And Joseph said unto them, The third day this do, and live, for I fear God. If ye be true men, let one of your brethren be bound in the house of your prison. In the house of your prison, go ye, carry corn for the famine of your houses. But bring your youngest brother unto me, so shall your words be verified, and ye shall not die. And they did so. And they said one to another, We are very guilty concerning our brother, and that we saw the anguish of his soul when he besought us, and we would not hear. Therefore is this distress come upon us. So now what? The hot coals is on their head. Their conscience is activated. They know this is coming upon them for what they did to their brother Joseph. They think Joseph is not, or they think Joseph is dead, as we read in verse 13 at the bottom. And they... I'm sorry, Israel. Who the hell have house phones nowadays? The hell is this? All right, so verse 14. And Joseph said unto them, I'm in verse 20. But bring your youngest brother unto me, so shall your words be verified, and ye shall not die. And they did so. And they said one to another, We are very guilty concerning our brother, and that we saw the anguish of his soul when he besought us, and we would not hear. Therefore is this distress come upon us. And Reuben answered them, saying, Spake I not unto you, saying, Do not sin against the child, and ye would not hear? Therefore, behold, also his blood is required. So Reuben, like I told y'all, don't kill Joseph. Reuben was one of the only ones, because they were going to kill Joseph, but Reuben said, don't slay him, just sell him. So now Reuben is saying what? I told you. I told y'all. Verse 23. And they knew not that Joseph understood them, for he spake unto them by an interpreter. So this whole conversation while they in prison, Joseph is understanding all this. So Joseph is hearing everything. And when he speaks to them, he's speaking to them in the tongue of the Egyptians. Why? Because remember, I told y'all, we wise like that. We have a capacity to understand many languages. So when Joseph is speaking to them in the tongue of the Egyptians, then he has interpreters who's speaking to them in Hebrew. All right? So, and they knew not that Joseph understood them, for he spake unto them by an interpreter. And he turned himself about from them and wept. Why? Because he heard everything they were saying, and his heart was pricked. And returned to them again, and communed with them, and took from them Simeon, and bound him before their eyes. Then Joseph commanded to fill their sacks with corn, and to restore every man's money into his sack, and to give them provision for the way. And thus he did unto them. So all the money that they used to buy the food with, he gave it all back to them. told them, go home, take care of your family. And they laded their asses with the corn, and departed thence. And as one of them opened his sack to give his ass provender, in the end he espied his money. For behold, it was in his sack's mouth. So he says, oh man, the money that we paid for the food is back in my bag. And he said unto his brethren, my money is restored, and lo, it is even in my sack. And their heart failed them, and they were very afraid, saying one to another, what is this that God hath done unto us? And they came unto Jacob their father, unto the land of Canaan, and told him all that befell unto them, saying, the man who is the Lord of the land spake roughly to us, and took us for spies of the country. And we said unto him, we are true men, we are no spies. We be 12 brethren, sons of our father. One is not, and the youngest is this day with our father in the land of Canaan. And the man, the Lord of the country, said unto us, hereby shall I know that ye are true men. Leave one of your brethren here with me, and take food for the famine of your households, and be gone. And bring your youngest brother unto me. Then shall I know that you are no spies, but that you are true men. So will I deliver you, your brother, and ye shall traffic in the land. And it came to pass, as they emptied their sacks, that, behold, every man's bundle of money was in his sack. And when both they and their father saw the bundles of money, they were afraid. And Jacob their father said unto them, me have ye bereaved of my children. Joseph is not, and Simeon is not. And will ye take Benjamin away? All those things are against me. And Reuben spake unto his father, saying, slay my 2 sons, if I bring him not to thee. Deliver him into my hand, and I will bring him to thee again. And he said, my son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If mischief befall him by the way in which ye go, then shall ye bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave. Meaning, where I die of a broken heart if anything happened to Benjamin. That's the last son that I have from Rachel. I already lost the other son of Rachel, which is Joseph, who they assuming is dead. Chapter 43, last chapter. And the famine was sore in the land. And it came to pass, when they had eaten up the corn which they had brought out of Egypt, their father said unto them, go again, buy us a little food. And Judah spake unto him, saying, the man did solemnly protest unto us, saying, ye shall not see my face, except your brother be with you. If thou wilt send our brother with us, we will go down and buy thee food. But if thou wilt not send him, we will not go down. For the man said unto us, ye shall not see my face, except your brother be with you. And Israel said, wherefore deal ye so ill with me? I have to tell the man whether ye had yet a brother. He's like, why did I even tell him about Benjamin in the first place? And they said, the man asked us straightly of our state and of our kindred, saying, is your father yet alive? Have ye another brother? And we told him according to the tenor of these words. Could we certainly know that he would say, bring your brother down? And Judah said unto Israel his father, send the lad with me, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die, both we and thou, and also our little ones. I will be surety for him. Of my hand shalt thou require him. If I bring him not unto thee, and set him before thee, then let me bear the blame forever. For except we had lingered, surely now we have returned this second time. And their father Israel, so Judah saying, look, if you just gave us Benjamin, we could have been down there and back already, and had food already. So that's what Judah is trying to explain to him. For except we had lingered, surely now we have returned this second time. And their father Israel said unto them, if it must be so now, do this. Take up the best fruits in the land in your vessels, and carry down the man a present, a little balm, a little honey, spices, and myrrh, nuts, and almonds. And take double money in your hand, and the money that was brought again in the mouths of your sacks. Carry it again in your hand. Peradventure, it was an oversight. I mean, they made a mistake and gave y'all money back. This way y'all be guiltless. Take your brother and arise. Go again unto the man. And God Almighty give you mercy before the man, that you may send away your brother, that he may send away your brother and Benjamin. If I be bereaved of my children, I am bereaved. And the man took that present, and they took double money in their hand, and Benjamin, and rose up, and went down to Egypt, and stood before Joseph. And when Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the ruler of his house, bring these men home, and slay and make ready, for these men shall dine with me at noon. And the man did as Joseph bade, and the man brought the men into Joseph's house. And the men were afraid because they were brought into Joseph's house. And they said, because of the money that was returned in our sacks at the first time we are brought in, that he may seek occasion against us and fall upon us. That means to put them to death. And take us for bondmen and our asses. And they came near to thy steward of Joseph's house. And they communed with him at the door of the house and said, O sir, we came indeed down at the first time to buy food. And it came to pass when we came to the end that we opened our sacks, and behold, every man's money was in the mouth of his sack, our money in full weight, and we have brought it again in our hand. And other money have we brought down in our hand to buy food. We cannot tell who put our money in our sacks. And he said, Peace be unto you. Fear not. Your God and the God of your father have given you treasure in your sacks. I had your money. And he brought Simeon out unto them. And the man brought the men into Joseph's house, and gave them water, and they washed their feet, and gave their ass provender. And they made ready the present against Joseph. And they made ready the present against Joseph came at noon, for they heard that they should eat bread there. And when Joseph came home, they brought him the present which was in their hand, into the house, and bowed themselves to him to the earth. And he asked them of their welfare, and said, Is your father well, the old man of whom ye spake? Is he yet alive? And they answered, Thy servant, our father, is in good health. He is yet alive. And they bowed down their heads and made obeisance. And he looked up his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and said, Is this your younger brother, of whom ye spake unto me? And he said, Go be gracious unto thee. God be gracious unto thee, my son. And Joseph made haste, for his bowels did yearn upon his brother. And he sought where to weep. And he entered into his chamber and wept there. And he washed his face and went out and refrained himself and said, Set on bread. And they set on for him by himself, and for them by themselves, and for the Egyptians which did eat with him by themselves, because the Egyptians might not eat bread with the Hebrews, for that is an abomination unto the Egyptians. So it's the same thing today with back in the 1900s, color only, whites only. They get that from the Egyptians, because it was an abomination for the Egyptians, which is the ancient Egypt, to eat with us. Same thing with them in their restaurants and etc. In modern day Egypt, which is America, they don't want to eat with us. Color only, no dogs, no Mexicans, no Puerto Ricans, no Negroes, no colored. Same exact thing. They pattern themselves after ancient Egypt. Look at the precept for that real quick. Psalm 54. Esau patterns himself after the former kingdoms. Esau behaves himself after the former kingdoms. That's what he does. He learns how to govern and rule and oppress by studying the former kingdoms. Let's get Psalm 64 and verse 5. It says, They encourage themselves in an evil matter. They commune of laying snares privily. They say, Who shall see them? They search out iniquities. They accomplish a diligent search. You see that? So they search out iniquities. What? The iniquities from the former kingdoms that were of old. They search out iniquities. They accomplish a diligent search. Both the inward thought of every one of them and the heart is deep. So nothing they do is coincidental. Everything they do is according to a certain blueprint. They follow the kingdoms that were before them. Ancient Babylon, ancient Greece, ancient Rome, ancient Egypt, etc. All right, so that was Psalm 64, 5, and 6. So let's go back. Verse 32. Genesis 43 and 32. And they set him on for him by himself, and for them by themselves, and for the Egyptians which they eat with him by themselves, because the Egyptians might not eat bread with the Hebrews, for that is an abomination unto the Egyptians. And they sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men marveled one at another. And he took and sent messes unto them from before him. But Benjamin's mess was 5 times so much as any of theirs. And they drunk and were merry with him. So he gave all of them provisions. He gave all of them provisions. He made sure Benjamin had 5 times as much. Why? Because that's baby bro, and he had nothing to do with him being sold. And that's the mother. That's the son of Rachel, his mother. Same mama, same daddy. So he made sure that he was well taken care of. All right. So that's the 4 chapters. Any questions on those 4 chapters? Any questions on those 4 chapters? Most High in Christ bless y'all. Shalom and Most High in Christ bless y'all and y'all households. Any questions, Israel? All praise to the Most High family. All praises. All praises. All praises. Most High in Christ bless. Most High in Christ bless to France. And Most High in Christ bless to Alcier. All right, family. Does Reuben having compassion on Judah have any significance on Judah here in captivity? Damn, Zachariah, you deep. And you deep. Well, you know, Ecclesiastes 1:9 say what hasn't been done will be done. There's another thing under the sun. So there's a precept for you being deep. Let's see what else we got. What will we get to do to them when we rule? Brother Darren, bro, that has nothing to do with these 4 chapters, bro. Just read Revelation 13, 9, and 10. That tells you everything you need to know. It's going to be a lot of bloodshed and a lot of slaves. But the 4 chapters will be coming on Monday through Friday. Monday through Friday. Monday through Friday, typically Monday through Thursday, anywhere between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. And then on Fridays, it's going to come on just a little bit earlier, maybe like around 4 o'clock due to Deacon Yalsop coming on. So we try to have it done before Deacon Yalsop comes on. All right. So Friday will be the only day you'll see it probably start around 4. It'll start early on Friday. But from Monday through Thursday, the time frame is anywhere between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So 5 p.m. 7 p.m. is the time window, Eastern Standard Time. All right, I don't really see no more questions. I'm not going to hold y'all. Most High in Christ bless y'all, family. I pray y'all everybody got something from the chapters. Let's make sure we stay in the history. Learn to love our own history, all right? Most High in Christ bless. Shalom.